Hello, everyone. I'm very pleased to moderate this talk around finance transformation augmented by GenAI. I'm very pleased to have with me today Hélène and Ben. Maybe as a starter, you can introduce yourself, and I will introduce myself afterwards. Hélène.
Hello to all of you. Good afternoon. I'm Hélène Doré. I'm the Chief Transformation Officer for Finance and Legal at L'Oréal, and I'm also the strategic lead for our shared services in finance.
Ben.
And so I'm Ben. I'm working as a head of product strategy at Pigment, which is a French startup, a bit bigger than just a startup today. We just announced our Series D recently, and I'm leading the AI topics, and I think that's what we are going to talk about, right?
A French reporting solution.
Reporting, we are doing planning also. It's what we call an EPM software, enterprise performance management software. But we are able to do a lot of BI. We have a lot of BI capabilities, and we basically streamline all the decision-making process in scale-ups up to enterprise companies. So.
And on my side, I'm leading the finance transformation practice at PwC France and Maghreb. Maybe to begin the discussion around finance transformation and GenAI, let's go back to basics. What about if we can define GenAI, what it can provide? In your point of view, Hélène, in terms of business, what do you see that? And maybe Ben, after in terms of solution, what does it mean?
Well, what I say very often is that GenAI is very interesting, but it's not the alpha and the omega for finance. For a simple reason, which is that finance is a function which is mostly about numbers, and GenAI is about text. So in finance, what matters very much is not so much GenAI alone, but GenAI associated to AI. And what I feel is really interesting having now the association of GenAI is the accessibility that GenAI gives to numbers and also potentially to leveraging AI algorithm. And I see, in fact, we are working in my team on two types of use cases. The first one that we call text to text, and the other one that we call text to numbers. And this is really connected to what I just said before. And if you want me to explain a bit more, I will.
Go ahead, Hélène.
So on text to text is a pretty classical story, is asking in natural language something about a text, norms, processes, about systems, problematic hotlines, and the system's going to answer with text. And I'm sure all of you are starting to develop those kind of things, having an OpenAI LLM model. We have that, the L'Oréal GPT, inside the company, and basically the point is to feed this tool with the bibliothèque of all of those norms, processes, so that our teams, instead of looking for that information themselves, they just ask the system, and the system will return the answer and also the source of the answer. And this is something really, really important, not just the translation of the answer to the question, but where the question is coming from. And the second use case is text to numbers, which is I'm asking in natural language a question about a number. I'll give you an example. What is the turnover of the US on the month of March? And this one is a bit more complex to put in place, because that means we have, technically speaking, to be able to ask the question in natural language. This question must be able to generate an SQL query to be able to find the right number inside a big data platform where all of our financials are being stored. And the connection between the query, the prompt, the SQL, and being able to return that number from the data platform is slightly more complex, technically speaking, but we're starting to having the right answers at the moment.
Because with your example, when you say the turnover of US, we do not define what we hear about US. Is it the countries or all the legal entities?
Exactly. In the financial data models, usually we have many dimensions. And when you ask a question, you never ask the question in such a way that the question is going to go through all the dimensions. But the real answer is at the intersection of all of those dimensions. So for example, what is the turnover of the US on the month of March? March, the real month of March, the one that we closed, the month estimate. Do we want the answer in USD? Do we want the answer in euro extrapolated, euro comparable? Is it the US, the legal entity? Is it the commercial entity? All of those elements, nobody asks in natural language immediately. But the system needs that information to be able to answer. So we've been testing several solutions, possibly that some parameters are already set or are deduced from who you are as the person asking, or having a ping pong. The system will question back until it gets all of those elements needed to get the answer back.
So some challenges, but we'll see also the benefits and more challenges afterwards about what it can bring. Ben, in terms of solution provider, with the buzzword GenAI, what does it mean concretely for you?
So for us, it means, I mean, I'll give the vision. Okay, it means trying to transform how you interact with systems. And we see in GenAI, very powerful benefits of minimizing the complexity of how you access data. So what we call assisted data modeling, data visualization. You can query, as Hélène just said, what is my revenue in France or the US on a specific month. But you can go actually way further, start getting insights, from the system, and do a drill down analysis quite automated. But for us, there is also a big benefit, which is helping all our users creating scenarios and modeling their data model in Pigment. Pigment is a data platform. Okay, it helps companies creating their plans. But you, as a company, most companies actually need to structure the data in order to leverage AI correctly. Otherwise, you just find into hundreds of database, some random entity names or country names. So actually, Pigment helps companies doing that, and we use GenAI as a layer for queries. So as I said, data visualization, but also modeling, and the long-term vision is actually to trigger with very simple queries like what happens if I open a new country with this type of activity, and try to get a simulation of your numbers in real time.
So Hélène, as a long-term vision was mentioning Ben, what do you see the impacts, benefits, and maybe difficulties with deploying GenAI, NI in finance department? Will it be very positive for the people?
Yes, of course. First of all, because I think we have to live with our times. So we have to adopt those new technologies, because it's very much a question of what is being called the technological coefficient. We have to make sure that our teams are constantly working on the new techs, because that enhance their skill set and their ability to work fast and efficiently. So of course we need to adopt. Now, in terms of the real benefits, everybody's talking about the huge productivity those tools are bringing. For me, the question is a bit more complex than that. It's not suddenly you're going to need half less people than you used to just because you're using AI or GenAI. It's more about reinventing the content of what your people are doing. You probably will get pretty much the same number of people. And when you look at the previous waves of technologies in the past, is exactly what has happened. We haven't reduced our teams. We have evolved in what our teams are doing, refocusing more on added values and other tasks. And what matters very much for me is also the question of the organization. It's not just about putting algorithm in the hands of our people. We need to make sure that we have the right organization to welcome those tools. And at L'Oréal, in my department in finance, we're looking at that very carefully at the moment. We don't believe we want to give all of those algorithms to everybody at the same time. We believe that having those algorithms in hand requires that you understand what the algorithm is able to do and not able to do. And if you don't have that knowledge, you might misuse those algorithms. So we, believe that we need to make sure that our people are rightly trained. We believe that some advanced users will have the capability to use some of those advanced algorithms, not everybody. And we also believe that it's very important to embed the algorithm inside a user interface that is clearly explaining what it does and what it doesn't do. some specialists of AI are saying something that I feel is very interesting. They say when you look at GenAI, the 3 dots, it seems that the system is thinking. This is absolutely not true. The system is not thinking. The system is just a bunch of statistics. But the fact that you put the 3 dots somehow implies something that is not the reality. So the interface matters very much. And for me, packaging the AI in an interface where you'll be able to explain to people, on this step, you can convoke that AI. It's going to do that and that and that. On this step, I need your input. This is really what matters very much in the end, so that the AI is not just replacing humans, is enhancing humans, and we have to educate our people to play with those tools, knowing what it does, what it doesn't, and making sure that they keep on control of what the AI does, but they're still also in control of what simulation, for instance, means. Because the real difficulty with AI is if you end up having algorithms that are simulating, for instance, the forecast, you push a button, it does the simulation. If you don't pay attention, in a generation, 3-4 years time, everybody in the company has forgotten how to do the simulation manually. And sometimes the algorithm projecting on the future what was the past could be wrong, because there are some parameters of the future that will be different from the past. So we absolutely need to have people that will always be in a position to criticize what the algorithm is doing, to be able to break out and say, hey, no, this time I'm not going to use that. I know it's not making sense. But to be able to do that, you have to have the right organization, you have to make sure people understand, and you have to make sure that you put the AI in such a way in the interface that people will be somehow forced to have this dialogue with the machine constantly and to convoke their own intelligence and their own criticism along the entire process.
So GenAI is not a question only about systems, it's also a question of organization, of people, training. But let's go back to systems and solution.
Okay. I think the question of users actually is quite interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so what we see, I mean, we are seeing a lot of things, a lot of patterns, a lot of like behaviors, you know, when a user uses GenAI. A lot of people are using ChatGPT. Usually it's to generate text, summarize, you know, maybe find some knowledge, even if we need some, double check, especially on knowledge. But what we see when we add GenAI into products is that end users don't know how to question and how to ask questions, you know, and if they do, it requires a lot of back and forth, a lot of trial and error. So I think the question of how the chatbot or assistant, whatever you put in place, how it actually gets more insight from the user, and you have this, this idea of agents, even if they are not completely ready to be put in production, is really interesting, right? How can the AI, when it's not let's confident enough about a certain query, ask question back to the user. And this interaction is very, very important, because we actually need the AI to explain what it can do. I think it's a very, very good point. That's what we are actually implementing at Pigment, is giving some clues, giving some examples of how to use it, because it can be very powerful, or it can be also very deceptive if you don't know how to use it. But the important thing to also say is that there is this quote. I mean, it's quite a famous quote that say that the LLMs that you are using today, so large language models, are probably the worst that you've seen, right? And that's true. It's evolving very, very fast. So, I think it's the time really to invest in this technology. We see a lot of powerful features. Not everything can be accomplished today, but there are a lot of interesting use cases, though. You can start implementing them, and that's what we are doing. The capabilities of those models, of being able to extract intention of the users, will improve, and we will. I think from next year or in 2 years, we'll be able to actually do like full scenario simulation.
So let make us a little bit dream.
Yeah.
You said in 1 year, 2 years, what can we expect in terms of technological evolution? What it will bring quickly in terms of use case? Do you have any example?
Yes, sure. So if you start already today, we can talk about like today's examples. I think the query in terms of like data visualization is an interesting use case. things that BI softwares are also doing, you know, querying as you mentioned. As I said, it can go further, like trying to actually analyze data. It's not the LLMs themselves who can do that. They like, you know, analysis skills, reasoning skills. It's actually pretty poor on that. Mathematical skills too. So if you combine it with the right technologies besides, you know, right algorithms, it can do actually powerful analysis. So analyzing, then we move from, you know, the simple analyzing process to something where you can actually create things. So the scenario creation you mentioned, there are two types of scenarios. One could be simply, you know, extrapolating numbers. That's what like machine learning and traditional AI can do today.
So more AI than GenAI.
It's part of AI. It's more machine learning. So you have a lot of algorithms that you can use today. Always consider that black boxes, you know, you have very poor interpretability, explainability. So it's quite, it's not very well adopted, especially in the finance office. However, there are already ways to integrate it with GenAI. I think it's quite interesting the way some trends on time series forecasting and trying to use the technology of large language models, so the transformers, on time series forecasting. And what it gives, it can give also new ways of seeing, you know, the forecasting models. It can give more information about how it found information, how it, you know, calculated the forecast, and you will get probably in 2 to 3 years something way more advanced on the forecasting itself. And then the last piece, what we, you know, we are researching right now, is how you can, from a simple query, actually create objects. So imagine you are in a BI tool, you create all your metrics, your calculations, your formulas. Today you still need to be trained to do that. So how can we transform that and actually make it accessible to anyone to build scenarios, create new applications or new use cases? You want to start something on supply chain, you don't know how to do it. GenAI can not only help you on, you know, the technical side on how to do things, but also on, you know, what are the key metrics you need to follow. It can help users really be trained on their own own career, right?
Yeah. So Hélène, on your side at L'Oréal, what are you going to implement in terms of use case with AI and GenAI?
Well, on GenAI, as I said, the text-to-text is being able to query all of our financial documents, norms, processes, financial reports. That's one. The second one is text to numbers, as I mentioned, being able to dialogue with the machine to get your numbers and your insights. That's very interesting for finance people, because since we have a mass of information to explain to the management or to analyze, that we can anticipate, being able to have a conversation with your numbers can accelerate your capacity to get the right insights. It's also very interesting for non-finance people. Because for non-finance people, they very usually have to ask their finance people what's going on. So tomorrow we could imagine that we give access to that to general managers, marketing directors. Of course, we have a bit of work to do, because as I said, transforming a natural question into the right number is not something as obvious as that. So we're going to have to frame that and progress along the way. So that's for the GenAI. And I insist on the fact that GenAI, again, is not the alpha and the omega for finance. The real story is on the AI side. GenAI is not good at math. So, and the heart of what we do in finance is about calculating, simulating, projecting, anticipating, detecting frauds and those kind of things. So we need AI for that. And on the AI side, we are working on 3 type of use cases. The first one is what we call deep detect, or business insights, is being able to run algorithms that are able to go through your data and being able to pull out either the anomalies that could lead us to think that we have a fraud or something that's not working well on a process, but also understanding the key business highlights. When you have lots of data, it can take you some time to figure out what has happened or what is not consistent on the future versus what has happened. We have an algorithm doing that already, pulling up all those insights in a tree, saying, hey, your year to date is that far from your forecast, this is mostly coming from this, and this, so that you don't have to spend 2 hours, 3 hours looking for any dimension, and we want to enhance that further. So that's deep insight. The second one is, of course, simulating, forecasting, because a big part of the work of finance people is to trend, retrend, anticipate what the future is going to be, and this is taking a lot of time to our finance team. So we are working on that end. But again, I insist on the fact that when we'll bring those algorithms, we're not going to replace our people because the machine will do the work. We will enhance our people with those tools, so that one, they can go faster. Second, they can go deeper in the analysis of the data to drive conclusions on the forecast.
So they are working like your assistant for controllers. We consider at PwC that, with GenAI or NI behind, we have the work done by junior controllers, but need to be checked, need to be validated, need to be reinsured. At Pigment, maybe what kind of investment are you going to do not only in GenAI but in NI in order to try to still improve this platform for finance?
So we are actually introducing also machine learning capabilities, as I said, as for time series forecasting. I think the combination of both is very powerful. Actually, Pigment is not only for finance; it's one of our core business. But we have been expanding to workforce planning. We've been expanding to sales performance recently, and we will go to supply chain too. And I think even if we don't talk about AI, the way you can gather all this data in one single platform is very powerful, because then you can query. You have this data layer, AI layer, as I mentioned earlier. And you can actually pull your numbers directly from your P&L, from your demand plans, from your workforce planning, and actually make sense of all of that. I think some of the use cases Hélène mentioned about insights, that's something we can actually do pretty easily. You do your drill downs directly from the platform. It can be done by AI actually. And one of the interesting features we are working on is also how can you explain that in terms of dependency of calculation. So you have your revenue. How do you actually explain the variance between your forecast and your budget? So analyzing by dimension is one thing, but even if there is a big gap in one country, how do you explain where this gap come from? And actually, it could come from another data set that has volumes, prices, currencies, and all of that. So,
but a lot of challenge to align all the data set, data model, data quality, because
data quality is key.
So GenAI is not magic. AI is not magic. You need to get some quality in your data and your data model.
But that's So Pigment is really like the initial product was actually to fix a lot of inconsistencies that you have in your data, in your plans. How you get numbers in your Excel files and all. And we expanded on we benefit from AI to actually make sense of all those numbers together.
But we know it's still a challenge to benefit fully from the solutions, to get all the data with a good level of quality.
As you said, there's no magic in those tools, and it's been like that for many years, and every wave proves to confirm that. It's all about data, and if you don't have the right data, rightly structured, rightly qualitative, if you don't have either the right people knowing what the data set is about, if you put those systems on top of that, it's not going to produce anything correctly. And then again, it's about data. It's about the right skill set to develop those tools, to test them well, to govern them well, because a key thing is also the sustainability of those algorithms that you're putting on the table for your users. You have to have somebody, a team, an expert team monitoring those algorithms, being on top, on control of those algorithms to make sure that we can adjust them according to what we see they're driving. And then the right organization, who's going to use that? How do you force and enforce the adoption? Because this is another big challenge. We're talking a lot about tech, but we have to really care about how people receive those technologies and start adopting them. Because without adoption, there's no value of the tech at all. And I see, and this is a constant, and I've been doing transformation for 10 years, half of the journey is about change management and adoption. So you have to care and think about how your users are going to understand, use, and embed those new tools inside their everyday. And even though it seems easy, even though it seems user-friendly and hype and whatever, the reality is people don't adopt if you don't constantly come after them, chasing, explaining, and proving the benefits along the way.
Thank you. So nothing magic. Let's take a few questions now, if you have some. We're happy to get your questions. You've got the experience from L'Oréal and a great solution provider with Pigment, so do not hesitate. There are some mic if needed. First question is always the most difficult. I think that's the first time that... okay.
Yes, thank you for this presentation. I would like to go deeper with you about supervision, because most of us, we are on this stage. We put on the table new algorithm, but now is how to make them work and be efficient for the next years. So do you see that part of your organization of finance? How do you see the roles, the share roles between finance and IT? Could you talk about that, please?
Well, it's really a partnership, as you said. In my team, we work very close to IT, and we work as a team, in fact. And in my finance transformation team, I have hybrid people. In fact, people that are able to understand what the métier is in need of, because all of them are coming from the métier, but also people that have been working so much with IT that they also understand the ways of IT, so that they can also translate and speak with IT. And coming back to your question in terms of supervision, yes, I definitely believe you have to have teams that are supervising the algorithm, making sure that you constantly test that it's producing the right results, adjusting them along the way, because the story, the ecosystem changes, the business changes as well. And yes, I do believe this is part of the missions that finance has to hold on to. It's not just a technical topic. You have to monitor and supervise the algorithm in understanding of what the technology does, what the code is about, but also in understanding what it produces in terms of output, given what you understand from what the métier is in need of.
Questions? Yes, on that side.
Good afternoon. One question about governance, because the multiplication of AI intelligence, Power BI, whatever tools they were put with the team has also multiplied the number of reports, not only in finance, but through commercial, supply chain, and that sometimes there's a lot of data navigating in the company. So finance, usually they know what they're producing, but did you put a specific governance into your L'Oréal or a company to make sure the multiplication of data is not jeopardizing the job?
Well, in fact, this is a story that we touched 10 years ago when we in finance implemented our simulation and reporting tool. We made the choice to implement one system, the same one for everybody, no local specific, so one system. And we decided to govern from the center all the financial reports. So I have in my team a team managing that system and managing the set of reports. And building from that, we have decided to hold on all of our transformation in finance centrally. So every single project that we manage is managed from the center and applies to all of our regions. So when data started, we have adopted exactly the same framework. So all of the Power BI Looker type of dashboards are being developed at the center in my data team and made available to all geographies and all controllers. That allows us to concentrate the means and make sure that we don't disperse this money in many pockets, one. Second, make sure that we strategize the priorities where we put the money in terms of development, where this is really needed and benefiting the group as a whole. And third, as you just said, this is allowing us to avoid the over-proliferation of reports people get lost in, but also of reports that are not of good enough quality, that could harm the credibility of the financial numbers inside the company.
Thank you. That was the last question.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ben. Thank you,
you.
Hélène. If you want to give more insight, more questions, Hélène and Ben will be around. Hélène, I think you won't be very far from here.
Yeah, no. I live next door.
And if you want to see concretely GenAI applied to finance, you've got some demos. So we're happy to show you with some concrete demos in different use cases. So please do not hesitate to ask for those demos. Thank you. Thank you to both of you.
Thank you.